This week on RSBANDB Update, we have fixes for Anachronia, including Jadinko gameplay for Big Game Hunter, bait changes, and a discussion on dinosaur bones and prayer. We also discuss money making on Anachronia, the rebirth of exploration, and potential changes to the player-owned farm. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 733, recorded Wednesday, July 17th, 2019. Bone Crush Dreams. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Tanis is off on vacation this week, so I'm flying solo for an hour this week. I'm going to be talking to everybody about everything RuneScape related. Actually, no, I'm just kidding. I have Sarah on here to help us and get through this episode. Welcome.
I should let you do it all on your own now. You've deserved it. You've deserved that. I should just sit here and let you do an hour of RuneScape talking, see how that goes.
But you know what the thing is there's going to be things that we're going to be talking about on this episode that you're going to love to jump in on at that point. So I don't think you'd be able to stay quiet for that long.
You know me too well.
That is indeed true. And, hopefully that extends to the listeners as well. Because, this week's a patch week, but we do have some interesting things that we want to bring up throughout it. And it is, of course, Anachronia patch week, which, hey, that's something to celebrate, right? The fact that we have the Land Out of Time coming in and, it was a patch week this week, and it seems as though there really wasn't too much that was broken.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't another mana force or something like that, which is always a really good sign. I don't think there were any big hot fixes they had to do either, so that's always a good sign.
Yeah, and, I think most of what we have here is just, little quality of life fixes that are going to help in various ways, and some things that were just oversights, so we'll get to those in the patch notes. Personally, I'm still interacting with the content a week in. I'm about a third of the way through completing my second agility codex. I'm going to probably sell the first one. I haven't 100% decided on that. I'm going to decide on that after the podcast today, but that's my plan for that.
How long did it take you to get first codex?
Well, we can do some quick math on that. I'm averaging about 8.5 minutes per run because I don't have bladed dive, and I'm just not good with clicking things, right? But you can easily get it down to 7 minutes or so. So I'm averaging about 8.5 for a good run. If I'm doing other things, not paying attention, that can go up into the 9s. So on average, I find that I get I think it would probably be safe to say on average, maybe 12 pages per run, because there are some runs where you only get the pages when you come around, you complete the obstacle, right? So if you're going to say that you're going to get 12 pages per run on average, and it's going to take you 8.5 minutes to do, are we looking at one to claim or one to sell?
Both.
Okay. So if we're just looking at one to claim, it's going to take you 31 runs to do that for 500 pages.
31 runs.
Sorry, hang on. I messed up on that. It's going to take you 42 runs to do that.
42 runs.
42 runs and times 8.5 minutes, so you can get you can get a picture with that. I multiplied the wrong factor there.
A lot of time.
Yeah. So just on that, looking at that, it's going to take you at least 5.5 plus hours just to get one that you're going to claim for yourself, and more if you're going to sell it off. So that's something to take into effect. But I think the best you can probably hope for is, sub 7 runs. And I think you're going to have to be laser focused for that. And I don't know anybody who can focus on agility that hard. So,
How are they still selling for like 60 mil or something like that?
last I heard, they were selling for about 58-ish, give or take. So,
Okay.
I mean, they're still decent, but they're going to keep going down as people keep playing the
market
content.
gets saturated, right?
Yeah. And, I have this grand theory that we'll talk about later that what the whole point of this update is in terms of the agility and the hunter is that these are just ways to find or ways to make money with these two skills. And, after the initial hype drops down, people are going to start moving away from there, and you'll see it maybe go back up a bit. So maybe an ending price of around 30 mil or so. According to the forums, they're at 50 today.
I always find these codexes, because it's not the first time we get ability codexes as a reward. I always find it very interesting because it never seems like it would be a sustainable thing. Because the target audience for these abilities always seems to be this sort of high-level PVM segment of players.
Yeah.
And especially with sort of the influx of people trying out the content, you get a pretty quick saturation of that market. And after that, like, I feel the abilities, like the market for these codexes sort of fizzles out. And there might be a continuous sort of low demand, but can it really sustain multiple people using this as a money-making method? Like, that's sort of the idea behind that. I'm not sure if that works out. If you look at the masterwork armor from the mining and smithing rework, like there's a sustainable demand on that because it's not a one-time unlock. You have to keep
making masterwork.
And these codexes, like, you unlock it once and you never need it again.
Mm-hmm.
How that only is sustainable if new players get added to the market pool all the time. And I'm not sure if there's a lot of people actually coming in.
Yeah,
because you need as many people coming into that market as you need people that use it for money making, realistically. So
yeah, and the double surge, double escape is no mass cab ability codex with corruption blast, corruption shot. It's not even a bladed dive from Shattered Worlds. So there's utility behind it. It's just a question of where it's going to fall. And I mean, hey, if you're someone who's going for 120 agility and you can stand the clicking and you want to come out ahead, you're probably going to choose this.
Yeah, exactly. The question is, like, in that process of going to 120, like, how many of these codexes do you add to the market? And that's that many fewer people that need the codexes from then on.
Yeah, yeah. Though, I mean, you're going to have to look and say, just looking at the pure opportunity cost on this in terms of money making, let's say you're going for the one that you're going to sell. That's going to take you around 8.8 hours to do. And if it's going, let's just say it's going for something conservative of 50 million today, that's, still 5.6 mil an hour training agility. If we take that down to 20 mil, then that's still 2.2 mil an hour training agility.
Yeah.
So it's a question of if you want to click for it or not.
Yeah.
And this is with my slow rate. If you can be more efficient, you're going to be better.
Sure. It's just like, I find it interesting that rewards get added to the game that, I mean, I'm jumping ahead on what you're going to say. Like they're adding money-making methods to the game, but these money-making methods feel based on something that isn't sustainable as source of money. Because you unlock it once, you can't lose it to dying, you can't lose it to, like, charges. It's just you unlock it and you have it for the rest of your account's life.
Yeah,
no questions asked.
And there's a permanence of it. It doesn't degrade.
Yes. So that's sort of like, should permanent items like that ever be relied on to make something profitable?
If they were really wanting to make this a little bit more sustainable, they could have had. Someone's going to shoot me for saying this, but they could have had an ability that you need to recharge by adding more pages to it somehow.
Exactly.
And it wouldn't have needed to be 500 pages. It could have been 50.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's kind of what they did with the Telos, or sorry, not the Telos, the Solak drop. I forget its exact name, but that's the change they ended up having to do with those grimoire pages from Solak.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyways, a little bit of economics regarding this update. And the same's true for Big Game Hunter as well. I don't know if people have started paying attention to the drops that come from Big Game Hunter. We kind of glossed over this last week because of time, but there's this item called the Pterosaur Maul. We mentioned it briefly, and it's basically the Hex Hunter bow except for melee. And keep in mind, we're going to potentially be getting the weapon diversity changes coming in, and with the changes to mauls in terms of hitting extra hard, this thing's going to hit like a truck. 12.5% damage boost against anything classed as ranged. And a 10% hit chance for those ones as well. For this maul. So this is going to be something I think to keep our eyes on. Apparently the GE price is selling for 100 mil, and it hasn't moved in a week, so that tells me that there's very little interest in it if it's not moving. So people might just be
or the
selling
supply
the
is really low.
Yeah,
or the supply is really low.
And see, that's something we're going to have to look at with the Big Game Hunter update in particular. Is there enough of a draw to go to Big Game Hunter with how tedious it is? Because you saw that, and you saw me having a struggle of my life with that.
I make you do Big Game Hunter so I don't have to.
There you go, and I do it for the listeners too. And I think that's a good time to move on to our patch notes, because we do have multiple mentions of Big Game Hunter in the patch notes this week. And first and foremost, multiple hunter marks can now be obtained from double and triple encounters in Big Game Hunter.
Yeah, we had some fun with that, right? Because we thought it was a bug that multiple of them showed up.
Yeah, and I actually killed one of them when there were two of them on the field, believe it or not. So, and this was before this happened, and I don't know. I almost found the one with two easier than the one with one. I don't know why. Maybe it's because the circles were smaller. I don't know.
Could be.
Malatops will now correctly require level 95 Hunter to bait the central pad in the Big Game Hunter area. Okay, I don't know why I wouldn't have needed that bait to begin with, or what kind of issue that would have been. Information where to unlock the aggro verload. I have a real hard time saying that word. Like aggro overload, I guess. That's what I'm going to call it, just because it's easier to say, that potion recipe. But for people wondering, you go unlock it by talking to the woman in the Melior district and pay her 1 million GP if you want to do that. A hunter icon has been added inside the Big Game Hunter encounters to show where the bait pad is. The Bone Crusher will now also work with Big Game Hunter, and that is, of course, because dinosaur bones are dropped there. If you don't want the bones, if you don't want to sell them off.
Where do the dinosaur bones sit on the bone skill? Do you know?
In
terms of XP,
I can look that up. I didn't actually look that up. Maybe they're better than dragon because they're so large.
Even if they're on par with dragon bones, like that would be a big impact on like prayer training. Yeah. That might in itself
be a reason.
Make Big Game Hunter very profitable.
175 for Barry and 595 on a gilded altar. Now, if we go to the dragon bones, it's been so long since I trained prayer that I don't remember where those fall
dragon
in.
is higher.
Dragon is 252 on the gilded altar.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
They're better?
Yeah.
Oof. That could be interesting.
Barry for Dragon Bones is 72. So,
yeah,
they're 1.5 times better.
That's pretty significant. Haven't heard anybody about those.
And Double XP Weekend is coming up, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, here you go, listeners. I mean, if you were looking for a sneaky 99 prayer that nobody knows about. Dinosaur bones.
Infernal Ashes 62.5, and the best part about this is that when you're hunting these creatures, they go on cooldown every hour, so you're going to be taking bank trips. So you're not going to have the issue that you would have with dragon bones. Though I suspect if you're looking for profit, it would still be easier to farm dragon bones.
Probably, yeah.
But I mean, if you look at the GE values and the GE charts for the dinosaur bones, they are kind of shooting up. They're around 2,500 currently. Dragon bones are sitting at around 2K. So
the nice thing about bones drops is they're really steady and predictable. Like, you're going to get a set of bones every kill.
Yeah. And
which means it's sort of a baseline income, and then any sort of rare drops come on top of that.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, these don't drop just one. They drop between 3 and 5 each kill.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty decent.
Am I encouraging you to go to Big Game Hunter?
No.
Okay.
It would take a lot more than that.
All right. The guard NPC on the north side of the base camp can now reset agility lap progress for those that have lost their place on the agility course.
Which is not a hard thing to do.
Yeah, that is a hard thing to do, and I think this is an admission of having an issue with wayfinding on the agility course for some people, and I don't know if it should be that way.
I have not found the agility course easiest to navigate. Like, yeah. I've missed like turns on it.
Oh yeah.
And I just at some point I just gave up. I was like, okay, I'll just go and run back to the base camp, and this achievement can't wait until another time.
So as I mentioned, it is on par with Heffen training, but
a little more frustrating.
And, you know, I say it, I need to put the caveat out there. I say it's on par with Heffen training. And I wasn't using agility boosts like brawlers or any of that other fun stuff. I wasn't effectively dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And if you did dot all the I's and cross all the T's with this agility course, it would be better than Heffen training. So let's just put that out there.
You wouldn't get any mint cakes, though.
That's right. And I've still been looking for a good mint cake in real life following that, because mint is excellent.
It's not.
Oh.
What's wrong with you?
Oh. Okay. Agility lap progress will also be reset when you enter the base camp if you've been logged out for 3 hours or more and have not interacted with any agility obstacles beforehand.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So that you can't just, come and go as you please on the course. The Herbie.
It's also like if you stop halfway the agility course, and then you come back and you start over again, and it doesn't count, and it's a bit frustrating if you do a lap. You start training, you do a lap, you don't get the lap bonus. It's a bit like, well,
that was a waste. That was a waste. And I think we also need to just mention that this is, in effect, making it feel like a more complete circuit. And we didn't really hear much on those sub-circuits last week and following that either. So, once again, this is cementing my view that the agility course is primarily a money-making method for making money with the agility skill. So,
Did I see a note, though, that they did hotfix last week? Because they do have sub-circuits with their own sort of sub-circuit bonuses, completion bonuses. And they were giving too much XP for the lower level parts. So there was a hotfix on that. So I think there's more than just a whole lap bonus. Right. I think you get bonuses for completing certain sections. You get bonuses
for certain sections. And it's just kind of hard to see where they start and end, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's not intuitive. Like, it would be nice if that was sort of visible, so you could actually train on one of them, which I think right now is very, like, you would go back and forth, I suppose. But
maybe. I think, actually, that's the way it's designed to be, because the most efficient way of doing the agility course is not to, run through base camp to get to the start again. It's to start where you ended and go backwards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, The Herbie Werby D&D can no longer reset twice on the weekly reset trigger. People were doing it twice in 1 week.
Okay. Interesting.
The Pterosaur Maul and Hex Hunter bow effects will now appear as a debuff icon on the target being affected by the buff. Good to know. Failing an encounter in Big Game Hunter will no longer reduce the amount of dinosaurs you can hunt in the area. Leaving, teleporting, or killing a dinosaur will still make progress towards the encounter going on cooldown. This is excellent, because on day 1, I was there, and I failed too many times, and it went on cooldown, and I have to go do something else. So, I'm glad this has been changed, and it effectively makes it so that you're not penalized for failing too bad, I feel. Granted, yes, you're still paying the bait, but this is far better than needing to, go run away and do something else for an hour. So I think out of all the patch notes we've gone through so far, this one is my favorite.
It's also it's a bit silly to discourage people from doing a certain bit of content because they fail. Like that's just frustrating.
And when you think about it, comparing this to the elf thieving, when you get caught by the elf thieving, you just move on to the next clan. You don't need to necessarily stop thieving for the entire hour, or 20 minutes in that case. So this is a good compromise on this, and this is my favorite patch note.
Or 10 minutes if you build the right totem.
Yep. Next up, they added a new achievement to Anachronia called Do You Think He Saw Us? They added an achievement for getting caught by all the dinosaurs, Sirion.
Now this is super interesting. We designed the achievements for Rush Fusion, right? We had a lot of fun coming up with sort of weird things you can do, and we have some fun achievement. Like one of the achievements is called Pointless, and it basically means finishing a game with 0 points. It's a fun one, right? But at that point, we also said we should be careful making achievements for failing, because it's not really a lot of fun to force people to fail. And then this achievement comes along, and I'm like, you're sort of forced to fail on each of the things, and it doesn't really prove anything. And while it's sort of funny to get this achievement maybe organically, 95% of the people are going to go and get this on purpose. So
yeah,
I don't know what value the achievement adds. Like I think there's a few, like the surging only one tile, for example, or surging and not moving.
That one's funny. That
one is quite funny. I got it on accident. I did it on purpose though. I was like, I'm not going to try and get it on purpose. I'm just, at some point it's going to happen. I'm going to laugh about it, which is a way better way to get an achievement, I think, than just doing it. So like,
so you think they should be organic then?
I think that is much more fun. I actually in Rush Fusion got the Pointless achievement organically somehow. I don't know what I was
just
doing.
For everybody wondering, Rush Fusion is a game that he has written and published on Steam.
Yes. So yeah, it's a really fun one to get organically. There's a few other ones like in co-op, die like within 3 seconds of your co-op partner. Got that organically as well. They can be fun, but you have to be really careful forcing people into a failure scenario, because it's actually not that much fun if you do it on purpose.
Yeah. One that I got organically was called Swings Both Ways for moving the agility course both ways. No. They also prevented safe spotting from behind the large bone at venomous dinosaurs. Good. Big game hunters will now be more accurately shown on the world map with extra information included. This includes the dinosaur name, bait required, and rewards. So kind of like the mining and smithing overlay when you mouse over a mining site.
That's great. I really hope they start applying that to more skill. I'd love to see like all the hunter spots, all the hunter icons showing what creatures you can actually find there. Yeah. Just having that information in the
Farming
game.
Farming icons too.
Yeah, that would be great. Like showing what patches there are, and realistically, you would go to the wiki if you want to find all allotment patches, for example. But it's still just especially for people relatively new to the game who don't know to go to the wiki for this kind of stuff, it makes it so much easier to get around in the world. You know, what I think would be a bonus point is if you have to go and explore these places first.
Ooh.
Like, you go to a farming spot and bling, it shows up on your map with what's there once you have visited it.
Well, that's kind of what's happening with the base camp, because there's icons don't appear until you build it.
Right, exactly.
Oh.
So I think that would be really cool to do something like that. Like, same with mining, right? Like, you go to a mining spot and then you actually find what's there. It adds that tiny bit of extra. You have to explore the places before you get all the information.
And maybe you could pay someone, say in Lumbridge, money to unlock all the points on the map if you didn't want to necessarily do it through exploring.
I don't think that's necessary, because
Okay.
it's not a requirement. You can choose not to do it. But you might just not get your achievement.
Yeah, and see, I think Jagex wanted all the mining sites to be exposed.
Maybe, but like, it's a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
This makes it really easy. On the other hand, you know, it encourages exploration if you actually have to go to all these places. And imagine if they had done that with the mining and smithing rework. We would have basically been, like, a lot of people would have been encouraged to go to mining spots they had never gone to, or maybe hadn't gone to in a long time. Maybe rediscover cool new places. Like, I'm currently working on Masterwork Armor, and I'm mining all the ores myself. And I'm actually having a lot of fun mining in these old places again, and going to some places that maybe I hadn't gone before. So it's a conscious choice that you don't review that information beforehand. But I think the balance between showing where the mining spots are but not what's there until you've been there is relatively low bar, and it also makes it really cool if you as a player unlock a new area and you actually get to sort of take off and sort of unlock things on your world map, and you can see the progress on the world map of where you've been and what you've explored in a much better way than right now.
And that's what people have wanted. They wanted that exploration aspect back.
Yeah, and if you're a free player, I think it sort of puts like a grey overlay over the map, but you can still see exactly where all the banks are, which it sort of takes away from the mystery, doesn't it?
Yeah, and maybe that's what this whole update is designed to be. It's in effect a beta test to see if, hey, can we go back to that old style of exploration where we're adding some kind of blank slate to the map and the players are left to discover it? Because that's really what's happened with the Land Out of Time.
Yeah.
So, and maybe from that, and maybe that's the hidden gem in this whole update that we didn't talk about last week, is that this is the rebirth of exploration in RuneScape.
It is just a shame that you have nothing to show for it. Like, I'm fine if, like, the map is sort of relatively blank as you go there. But once I've sort of seen it all, I want to go to specific places a bit more easily. And if the map is not there as a tool to help me, that's a bit strange. Like, I feel you should at least be able to fill in the map as you go to these places then.
Yeah.
But, like, if they added that, I would lose my shit. Like, if they added this exploration mechanic where you have to go places, I would have a blast. That would be my update of at least of the year. Probably more.
All right. And, you know, if this is well received, then hopefully we'll see more of that. And, you know, seeing as we're effectively, and, you know, this is what I mentioned, is that this whole thing is related to time. Maybe this is just a way to get us back into those old style of updates. I really want to see what the first quest is going to be on this island. And
it can't be much worse than its predecessor.
Yeah, you know, there was a big discussion in Discord one night. I sent your article out to read about that and I meant to read about, not read the person, but granted he was there. And there was disagreement with your article on Desperate Times. But anyways, I think that's a topic for another day.
Sure.
Speaking of the map and revealing things on the map, I'd like somebody at the next lore Q&A to ask why there's Adamica on Anachronia, because it was our intention that was only supposed to happen if there was a god that died there. Or something with the gods, right? So next time there's a lore Q&A, I'd like someone to ask that.
Okay, I'll keep that in the back of my mind.
Yeah, thank you.
For Runefest, there might be a Q&A there.
Good. All right. Moving on these patch notes here. Trapper fragments can now be obtained from Big Game Hunter. You couldn't get them previously. I'd hope that they're being more plentiful from Big Game Hunter than they are from regular hunting because of the amount of time it takes in, bigger drops, so to speak, but something tells me it's not going to be the case. The co-op potion share option now works with the aggro overloads, extended super anterfire, and the stamina potion. Placing and removing creatures now works as intended in the player-owned dungeon, and you can no longer place Anachronia Slayer creatures in your player-owned Slayer dungeon, which makes sense.
That was a hotfix.
Yeah, it was a hotfix last week, and that makes sense because they're so huge. And I think reward-wise as well, that probably also had some factor into it. Actually, no. Scratch both of those. The reason is because you can get the seeds and you could just plant them in the fertile farming patch on Anachronia and grow them yourself and kill them whenever you want there, that way. That's why they did that. That's what makes sense. You can no longer place cannons or various other entities inside base camp on Anachronia.
Good.
Now here's a big one. Jadinkos can now spawn in Big Game Hunter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Jadinkos do on that island. They feel... Is this an anachronism?
Continue on.
No, I'm serious, though. It's a serious question.
Okay.
Is this an anachronism?
I don't know.
Like, why are Jadinkos on an island where everything is ancient and Jurassic? Feels a bit arbitrary.
Yeah.
Because they're still around.
Yeah. And, I mean, you can hunt them on the island, and they count for your hunter progress in terms of, if you're doing that herbal habitat stuff. That was a patch note as well this week that I didn't mention.
So...
Let's see.
Are Jadinkos just tiny donut dinosaurs that somehow survived the big asteroid that came on Gilinor and killed all the dinosaurs?
The Jadinkos on Anachronia now count towards the Jadinka. God damn it, you got that in my head now. They count towards the Jadinko Bingo achievement.
Jadinko Bingo.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. I think that's nitpicking in terms of why they're there, but
well, you are interested in why Animica is on an island. I want to know why Jadinkos.
We can't speak. We've been doing this podcast for how many years, and we still have problems speaking.
Yeah, I have to excuse this is not my first language. What's your excuse? Anyway.
I don't have one.
You want to know why Animica is on this island? I want to know why Jadinkos are on this island.
Okay, so we both have something we want to ask.
Yes.
I'll let you handle the asking of that at RuneFest. If there's no lore Q&A before then and now. Anyways, Jadinkos can now spawn in Big Game Hunter. And this was detailed in a post on Reddit, of all places. And the reason for this is because, and I quote, "In single big game hunter instances, you will now have a chance to see Jadinkos in the encounter at various points. Sometimes the dinosaur will deviate its walking path to instead walk towards a Jadinko snack. When the dinosaur eats the Jadinko, the dinosaur's detection is turned off, but right after it is done eating, the detection will resume and the dinosaur will move back towards its original path." So this is effectively a random event for the dinosaurs in Big Game Hunter. And on the surface, this looks as though it's something that helps. But in talking with people, this is really annoying because that dinosaur, there's a chance it will just make a beeline straight for the Jadinko. And if you're in its path, well, you're out of luck. So,
Hey, but at least it won't trigger a cooldown anymore.
that's true. There's also no warning message that accompanies it, so you just need to watch and keep your eyes open for that. And, those Jadinkos are really small. And I think they fit in to the map really well. So, this is slightly annoying, but I guess if you're paying attention, this could also potentially be a blessing for you.
Sounds like a great accessibility feature as well.
Oh? Oh, okay. I get
If they blend in with the background.
Yeah. Tanis didn't even try Big Game Hunter because of accessibility.
I don't blame him.
Yeah.
I didn't try it because it sounds awful.
Yeah. And, if your surge is on cooldown as well at the wrong time, you're going to kind of be SOL as well. So there's lots of questions about why this was done. But I don't know. It seems as though that this was done in order to just add a little bit more entropy into Big Game Hunter. Because as it was, they're on one specific path. And you know how good RuneScape players are at imitating paths, right? So. Anyways. I haven't done it since this came in this week. I've been too busy with my agility stuff. They've also now stopped Basecamp Tiers 2 and 3 General Store from selling Big Game Hunter bait in an attempt to stabilize the price and make Tier 1 bait retain its value. When these were first added in development back in March, they didn't expect the price to be as high as it was. And the idea behind this, of course, is that when you kill one of those Tier 1 dinosaurs, you want to be rewarded. But as it was, they were selling it in the Tier 2 and 3 General Store. So, hey, you could have just went there and away you go. But they needed to make this so that the bait would actually be sellable, which I think is good. That definitely needed to be done.
Sure, but, you get the bones as a reward as well, right?
Right.
It's sort of like... But, sure, this is good.
And it's a classic debate, should it be a closed system or should it be open, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I can see the point.
And by making it a closed system, you keep it all within the Big Game Hunter ecosystem.
Yeah, fair enough.
And yeah, as you mentioned, the dinosaur bones as well are always a fun thing. So, but I got to go back to Big Game Hunter after I finish with my agility because I am still going for the Totem of Treasure, and you get the top piece of that from Big Game Hunter, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I want the totem as well, but well, looking forward to it.
No, something funny happened. I got 2 totem pieces while doing agility in one run.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a bit odd, but I'll take it and accept it. All right, that's it for the patch notes this week. Anything else, Anachronia, you want to talk about? Get off your chest.
No, I think we had a really good chat on the roundtable. If you want to listen to the roundtable, you should just join Patreon.
Yeah, for as little as $1 a month, patreon.com/RSBANDB, and I'll get through all the fun details on that and what you get in just a second. But before we do that, I'll thank our Patreon supporters for this episode: Arvids L, Brock H, Cass, Darren L, Diana, Kyle, Logan H, So Juice the Devil, Tom V, Zachary K, and Zaz. Thank you, all of you, for your support on Patreon. It truly does mean the world to us. And if you want to become a Patreon supporter like these people have done, just head over to patreon.com/RSBNB, and you can sign up for as little as $1 a month. You gain access to, of course, our round tables, as Sirion mentioned. You get to listen to them. You get to join in on the round table discussions on Discord. If you want, when we record them, we record those on the second Tuesday or the second Saturday of each month. And you also gain access to listen to our monthly bits, which is that topic, that end-of-month show topic where we talk about something RuneScape-related that is of interest to us, and it's in general just a very hard-hitting subject. We've had a couple of those back-to-back, some really good ones, so you get access to the entire back catalog of that, and this is all for $1 a month. And you also gain access to the ability to vote in our Patreon exclusive polls to determine the next monthly bit topic, and that poll is currently up for Patreon supporters right now, and the choices for that one are going to be, once again, the RuneScape soundtrack, or a discussion about Iron Man, or how old school came to be and what it means for the game of RuneScape in general. And that's a rather poignant one to discuss given some of the recent old school updates that we've seen. So patreon.com/RSBNB. We also have enhanced options where for $3 a month you can get a special VIP rank in Discord and stereo AAC versions of the show. Or if you want to give the ultimate gift for $5 a month, a shout out on the podcast every week and exclusive access to the outtakes that we use for the clip show at the end of the year. And, we're currently at our third tier, so we're doing our monthly bit. We got Inside RSBANDB Update. We'll be interviewing a new person this coming month, and the RSBANDB Update Roundtable on the second Saturday of every month, where we talk about RuneScape for just an hour, and those are fun to do. We talked about the Land Out of Time in Anachronia this past weekend, and returning to the game as Earth was joining us. So, And should we reach that ultimate tier of $99 a month, that'll be movie night in the RSBNB Discord, where we'll look at some of our favorite movies, and there's a very good chance there's going to be some Star Trek included in that. So all of that and more at patreon.com/RSBNB. So thank you, everybody, once again for your support.
Thank you very much.
All right. We got 2 discussion topics from Pernasius in the form of an audio question, so let's hear what he had to say following his appearance last week on the show.
G'day, guys. It's a flu-ridden Pernasius with 2 discussion questions for you since it's such a quiet update week. First up, we are about 6 weeks away from the Player-Owned Farms anniversary, which I still believe was the best update of 2018. However, since its release, we have seen a devastating crash in the tree seed market, since the update offered overly excessive XP. Elder seeds pre-farm were 90k and are now 32k. U-seeds went from 30k down to 6k. Magic seeds took a big crash, 110k down to under 17k. And even Kelquats, which, while a cheaper seed, have gone from 1600 GP down to a measly 15 GP. And all of these seeds are still trending downward. At the time, my thought was that the farm should have taken the skill to a true level 120, with creatures unlocked as you leveled from 99 to 120 because of this very reason. It has taken the traditional farming skill of planting the trees and such and basically created a farming management skill. What are your thoughts, and do you think that the review of the XP rates hinted at recently will help if it manages to go through the me generation of players who only want exorbitant amounts of XPs these days? Now on to my second question, and it has to do with the Comp Cape debacle. Removing all the stats from being locked to the cape was brilliant, but it essentially turned it into a cosmetic cape. Now, since it is almost purely cosmetic, do you think it should actually be harder to obtain to show its prestige, rather than watering it down to the point where it's too easy and thereby making it pretty much worthless as anyone can get it? Also, a major point they made about the Comp Cape rework was to have goals to chase between Max and Comp, yet they seem to have tossed that by the wayside, leaving nothing to use as stepping stones between these 2 achievements. Personally, I regained my Comp with the update, but immediately put the Cape onto the Cape Rack storage in my player-owned house because it just feels such a cheap and tainted achievement now. Looking at it purely from this perspective as a cosmetic, since all the perks and teleports are now locked to the player and not attached to the cape itself, do you think Jagex ruined the accomplishment of comp? Thanks in advance for answering my question, and look forward to hearing your answers.
Oh boy, farming player-owned farm.
That's a fun one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you have your issues with the farm, though those issues have been largely patched over. We talked about that on the roundtable. Is you can put up to 1,000 food in each pen, and you can have the farm hands, prevent animals from growing past adolescent. You can collect eggs and whatnot. I'm going to say that, yes, the player-owned farm is an issue with farming XP, especially at the level 92 plus range on that, because the low-level seeds were already in the toilet price bin before the player-owned farm came out. You also have problems with PVM drops, as we've talked about many times before, with Telos and whatnot, dropping many magic seeds along the way. That's of course what pushed it down initially, because back in the day when I was training 99 farming, the magic seeds were around 180k at that point in time, and it was hard to effectively scrounge up that money. But now farming itself is its own, I guess you could say, self-contained ecosystem, in that you could effectively do one herb run now, one herb run a day, and you wind up with enough money to fund a full tree run if you wanted to go that way. So there's that side of it. But, I also think that, the player-owned farm does need to be looked at. But that's only one side of the equation. I think there also needs to be a discussion about what is the use of farming in the greater aspect of the game. Because what do you use farming for, aside from farming herbs?
I think farming has always been in a sort of unique position in that it's very much a skill you spend some time on each day, but very much sort of happens in the background.
Yeah, that's what I love about it.
Yeah, and I think they modeled that relatively well in the player-owned farm. It is a completely different direction, different area of farming, but it still sort of has that vibe of, you do some management there, but it just needs time to grow animals in this case.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have the feeling that, in terms of investment and time investment, the player-owned farm and the tree farming are not too different from each other.
No, they're not.
So the rewards...
let me just say this. I had it down to the point where I could do my tree run in under 5 minutes.
Exactly. So it feels that the return value you should get out of both should also be on par with each other. Now, tree runs are good for experience, but you have to sink money into them. While herb runs are not bad for XP, but you wouldn't do them for experience exclusively, but they have good sort of money value.
Yeah.
What is it you really get out of the farm? I think it is mostly experience, because and I think that's sort of what I find missing in the farm. Keeping animals don't really produce things over time. You have to go with new animals to sort of have that loop going, which, I mean, that, like, there's something to say about.
They did say they were
that.
looking at adding, that there is the possibility to add new animals when it came out, but we haven't heard anything on that.
It's also not that. It's just the fact that, like, the only way to get actual real game items out of the farm is by breeding new animals, making them grow up, and checking the grown-up animals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
the
chickens
skilling
don't
potions.
continuously produce eggs, and sheep don't continuously produce wool, which, I mean, I guess you can maybe share the sheep. I never actually tried that, but You know, like there's no loop really there unless you breed the animals. So the primary thing you get from player-owned farms is experience, and you get more experience from it probably than farms than trees.
Well, I don't know about that because assuming,
or at least there's very little money investment needs
True.
to go into farms. Well, if you want to get good XP for trees, you need considerable money investment, or at least used to.
Yeah.
And to make sure that they are on par, instead of the player-owned farm prices going up, which they can't really, because the only thing you put into it is food, and there's so many options for that. Like that can't all just go up in price. The supply is too big. So what happens is that the resources you need to put into the tree runs are going to go down, and that's why we see the drop in seeds. And I would actually say it's worse than just the seeds, right? Like magic trees, like the seeds are so expensive. You wanna pay for protection on those things. Well, what do you use for protection?
Coconuts.
Coconuts. There you go. Well, coconuts come from fruit trees, and coconut trees need like papayas, I think, to protect. So like, there's a whole chain of things that suddenly drop in price because they're no longer relevant. So, it's breaking the whole farming ecosystem.
And it's 90K for the adult to elder dragon.
What?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Sorry, I was thinking about that.
Well, no, they have your
There you
problem,
go.
then.
There you go.
Like, the effort
I was thinking of just
XP
the first ones. I wasn't counting the total thing. Total XP to elder is 200K for a dragon.
That's a lot. But I think they grow over multiple days.
Yeah, they do.
Right?
That's multiple days. I think if you're being really generous there, you're probably looking at maybe 4 days, maybe more. So,
but that's a single dragon, right?
Yep, that's one dragon.
So you have 50k XP per day, and you have 3 dragons you can do this to. That gives you more than double of what a tree run gives you.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, why would you go to the effort of doing a tree run if player on farm gives you more XP for no effort?
Yeah,
like that's sort of where I think
that's where it comes in.
Comes from. Like the effort XP balance is just out of whack, and I think that needs to be adjusted slightly.
Yeah,
and I think what I would prefer even more is if they went slightly lower with the XP rates and actually made it return some items as well, and have maybe like a different balance in XP to like maybe make it not the best XP per hour, but make it more profitable than a tree run would be.
Mm-hmm. And what we're also forgetting with the player-owned farm is there's that thing that people have not yet exploited on Double XP Weekend or Skill of the Month, where is that in this entire process, when you're farming these zygomites and whatnot, let's just assume you take your zygomites to adolescent, you're going to be getting 850 beans from each zygomite, and you stack all these up. There's also the magic beans that let you get farming XP stupid fast.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think it needs to be looked at, and I think what I would recommend most to Jags is look at like the different training methods. Look at like fruit trees, normal trees, herbs, and all that stuff. See where they are on the balance of GP and XP.
The balance pyramid.
Exactly, and then see if there's a gap there and put player-owned farms there, because that makes it complementary rather than complementary.
Yeah, complementary
to the other training methods rather than a competitor to these training methods, which it is right now.
Yeah. And, I mean, you have to optimize the farm to a T to get these XP rates, but that's not hard to do once it gets going.
For the trees, you have to actually spend time and effort into optimizing your run, getting your inventory set up, learning the routes and all that stuff. And for the farm, it's looking up a guide, what creatures do I need, buying them, chucking them in your pen, and that's it.
That's something else as well. You can go to World 2, play your own farm, and you can say buying adolescent dragons.
Yeah.
So that's something else as well. And I mean,
you can buy the tree seeds as well, but you
Yeah,
can't
but
buy
they don't yield
the
as
experience
much.
of doing the run.
And it's that adult to elder and stage. So that would be 90k XP when you grow those dragons up each time you did that. So if you just went there, purchase 3 of them, then go boop boop boop, away we go, ding ding ding, and away we go.
Yeah.
Just before we move on to the second one, Chinchompa residue.
What the heck is Chinchompa residue?
It's used to make one of the skilling potions that came out with the player-owned farm.
Okay.
Spider Fangs makes a super invention potion.
Sure.
Mycelial webbing.
Right.
And yak tufts for extreme divination potions.
Cool.
And my question to you is, have you heard anybody use any of these?
Nope.
Or use any of these potions?
Nope. Don't think so.
Exactly. I'm not sure what the... So the corrective action, I think, would be to make the stuff that comes out of the farm more useful, the produce, and
then drop the XP rates.
And drop the XP rates by what?
Yeah.
Half,
Yeah.
maybe?
More.
Okay. Yeah. But at the same time, you have to look and see, you get produce from everything else farming already as well, so maybe there should just be a farming method that's focused around XP.
Maybe. That being said, you get beans for like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then beans you can turn into like good stuff. So it's a hard problem, and we'd have to run the numbers to get a proper advice out here, I think.
And Jagex has better analytics to do that because they can look at everything that's been happening with the farm since it came out.
Motimbo can just throw his dice and wall.
There we go. Okay, Comp Cape.
Well, one thing that's there that I think is worth pointing out is what Panache has pointed out is that one of the things Jagex was trying to do was to put achievements like milestones on the path to comp rather than keeping that area empty. And I feel you. I have the same problem really, because I would love to have a goal to go to, but comp is a bit too far for me. That being said, one important thing that they did do is they put the rewards of the comp cape onto the character. That, I think, also means that there are already milestones on the path to comp. Getting, like, elite Adoin tasks gives you the milestone that, hey, you can now teleport
to the farm.
No longer do you have to wear the cape. It's like, it's just something you have now. Same with like the arrow stuff, the Avas accumulator effect, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Like these things now just like you unlock them over time, and truth be told, a lot of these milestones you'll probably already be getting sort of on the way to Taskmaster or the Quest Cape, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Still, like those are some milestones already on the way to comp. So it's not entirely fair that it didn't do any of that. That being said, I definitely I wish there was a way I could just go for an exploration cape or just go for a skilling comp cape. If these things would exist. So I don't have to deal with other parts. Like I wish those were there, but they're not. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think what they ended up doing is that they just ran out of time on it, that they needed to get some kind of solution out. because every idea kept getting bounced backwards and forwards. And, it felt like we were talking about this update forever, to the point where they just had to do something with it. And, we talked about this. The solution that they had is indeed a simple solution. It fixes the problems that they set out to fix initially with CompCape. It doesn't add anything new to it in terms of, providing new forms of progression, but it does fix the problems, the biggest problems that players outlined. And those were, of course, Reaper. Those were, of course, stupid achievements like the Castle Wars one. Those were, of course, making it feel like a requirement and that you would always wear the cape. And with the perks being available on everything now, that is a huge game changer. And this is something we talked about with our folks who have recently returned to the game, is that has been the biggest change for them of recent updates that they have appreciated, is the change to the CompCape, in that you have access now to all these teleports without, needing a CompCape or a MaxCape. You get them as you go. And, why are these arrows collecting? It's because it's on my character. So as much as we feel as though that there is so much lost potential with the big, complicated CompCape update, and that's what I say because that's what it was, I think more people have gained from the CompCape rework than people have lost. And that is what you always want to strive for. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't, take away anything that, we have had problems with, the fact that there's no clear paths on where to go from max to comp. After the CompCape rework came out, I had a look. I'm more than halfway to comp, and I haven't even tried.
I think one of the problems that there was around comp is that, the end game in RuneScape is just, it's not great. Like,
it's undefined.
It's undefined, and just everything is just clumped together and it's called comp. There's no real thought about it. For a long time, they didn't add any new requirements on new content because they didn't want to piss off the PVMers. No, but that's
I know it's true, but that's what it is. And I appreciate you for spelling it so clearly.
That was actually a problem that they didn't solve, I think. They didn't really fix paths beyond max, really. And so I think it's not fair to say that they solved all the problems they set out to solve. That's a problem they didn't solve. That's a problem they set aside, and they focused on the more pressing problems, in their opinion.
Yeah.
Very deliberate choice of words there.
And if they wanted to solve the more pressing problems, they could have, but they would have...
I also think
they would have went somewhere that was different than the initial scope. It was something that was starting to suffer feature creep, right?
In a way, yes. That being said, I still think it is a problem, but maybe the comp rework was not the right project to tackle that.
Exactly.
I think it needs a more holistic thinking.
It needs to come back to the solid ground first.
Yeah, it just needs somebody or a group of people to sit in a room and to really think about what is RuneScape, how does the end game look, and what do players get out of the game at that point, and how can we enable that best.
And there's going to be
a project that sort of needs to be built from the ground up. It needs to be, in my opinion, they should develop it completely separate from comp.
Yes.
See what they come up with, and then when they have sort of a solid design, then they can look at how does comp fit in this picture. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. It sort of truly depends, right, on what that design is. And that is probably a better way to solve the end game. But is there any motivation for Jagex to do it? That's sort of the question.
It's too big of a risk.
It probably is.
It's like we've long talked about that you pull off one successful update after another, the player-owned farm, the needle skips, the mining and smithing update, Anachronia. The question is, where do you spend that capital?
That being said,
they spent a huge chunk of it on the Hunter rebalance, by the way.
Oh, sure, yeah. But, like, it is also not that they would never do, like, take a risk like this. Like, the mining and smithing rework, they did exactly what I just described, right? They went back. They basically threw a lot of the ideas of what mining and smithing was out of the window, and they were like, okay, what is this skill? What does it have to do? How do we want players to interact with it? What needs to be the outcome? They really looked at what do we want to achieve? What do we want to create? And then they built the system that fits into that. That's really sort of the design that we need to have applied to the end game. And there's other places in RuneScape where this can be applied as well, but I think the end game really could benefit from this sort of truly back to the roots discussion of what is it and what do we want it to be.
Yeah, and and this is what I told everybody not to worry about, is that, if we fight hard enough for this after the Comp Cape rework comes out, there's a chance that, we could bring forward these milestone capes like that in some kind of an update going forward. But, and there's going to be a good forum for that too. We were talking this past weekend, and we added 3 more topics to our potentially monthly bit list. And, I'll just say what those are right now because I think they're interesting to think about, and we want to look at them at some point in the future. Defining the end game of RuneScape.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody ever tried to do that?
I don't think so, and I think that's what's needed to really, really build an amazing system and keep the game's longevity. I can't.
Yeah, but anybody inside Jagex or outside of Jagex? That's the question.
I mean,
does any player think of it that way?
I think Jagex needs to define it, but they need to validate that view with the players, of course.
Yeah. And, this is one of those things that you would start from the basic beginnings and get ideas and feedback from the players, just like they did with mining and smithing. You wouldn't necessarily let the players decide what the content was going to be. You would just get their opinions on ideas and sentiment.
Yeah, you would do sort of a research phase on that, definitely.
Yeah. And, they have had focus groups out and about, in various countries and cities. So maybe they're doing something along that effect, or maybe people are talking about that at RuneFest. I don't know, but it's definitely something that would be good. And, factoring into this and the idea of milestone capes, another thing we want to do is the value of achievements.
Yeah.
So these are things that we're thinking about, and, I think it would be good to get on the record at some point, and we want to do these. It's just a question of when, and, is it the right time to do it? But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, this is a project that needs to be collaborative, and I don't know if we're at the point yet where the community can collaborate in a meaningful way without being led first. They're not.
Hard to say.
Yeah. So.
Anyway,
anything
just
else
as a closing,
no?
just
Okay,
as a closing comment on the cape, I think one thing that was also discussed is that the comp cape is now very much a cosmetic thing.
Yeah,
and it is like it is that. I think we need to accept that. I am also fine with it because it makes it much less of a thing that people have to have. It is much healthier for the game if people aren't grinding themselves into sort of an exhaustion with the game, a tiredness with the game. We've discussed this on the show before, where people would just be so focused on getting the goal, they completely burn themselves out on the game. And as soon as this has become a cosmetic fabric of a cosmetic sheet of fabric you put in your bag, people are much less likely to burn out on the game for that, which is good for players and it's good for Jagex. So I have no issue with the fact that it is a bit less meaningful than it used to be.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, unlocking Bones to Peaches is still on the comp cape.
I don't want to do that.
No, neither do I. That's probably one of the ones I haven't done.
Same here.
Yeah. Oh, there's also an Arc mini quest on there.
I've done all those.
Okay, good. You are a resident Arc expert.
Sadly.
Alrighty, if you guys want to send your own questions in for next week, email them to questions@rsbnb.com or leave us a DM on Twitter @RSBNB. We'll incorporate your questions and discussion topics into the show. All right, so in tech news this week, the FTC has approved a roughly $5 billion settlement with Facebook. In other words, Facebook got fined for $5 billion over its privacy concerns. This was first talked about in the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post last Friday. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission, of all people, have approved this settlement with Facebook for $5 billion, which is the largest fine that has ever been levied against a company in this realm of technology for these privacy concerns. And, of course, for anybody who hasn't been paying attention to it, this is all, of course, spurred on by constant privacy concerns that we talk about in the media with Facebook, as well as big issues like the Cambridge Analytica scandal and Facebook's leaky data system that, just really at some point hasn't provided much concerns for their players' privacy. I mean, users' privacy, still thinking on the gaming front there. And, Mark Zuckerberg made that post in mid-April that came across like an April Fool's Day post where he was saying the company is going to be reorienting itself to become privacy-focused, which it was, because, you don't believe that when it was out. And we don't know exactly what the restrictions are of this settlement in terms of if there's any conditions that the company needs to change the way that it handles its data. But the New York Times did get some information on this and saying that Facebook agreed to more comprehensive oversight in terms of how it handles its users' data. And according to this, none of the conditions in this settlement will restrict Facebook's ability to collect and share data with third parties. So there we have it. I don't think this is going to stop them, is it?
So when the number came out, the stock of Facebook actually rose.
What kind of world is that where the company gets fined $5 billion and their stock rises in value?
I think people had more serious repercussions in mind, and $5 billion is a lot of money. It's
not for Facebook.
From the top of my head is more than the EU fines that have been given to Google on like the various topics. So it's a large number. That being said, I think the things we have seen from Facebook are so incredibly severe. Like, the privacy infractions were, I think we've sort of forgotten how serious they were.
Do you still use WhatsApp?
Yeah, I do. Mostly for, family communication,
Okay.
but I would not use it for, secure communication. It's sort of you choose your evils, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go and take the battle of trying to get my entire family and friend group to switch to a different thing. So, it's fine. We'll see. I don't know. 5 billion feels like a lot. It also feels not like a lot.
Yeah, when you compare it to Facebook's profits, it's not a lot.
It's a slippery slope, though. If the government can fine a business out of
existence,
that's also, I think that's also starting to be a really dangerous position.
Yeah,
because
in that case, you're effectively looking like the USSR, except in reverse. Yes,
it's also that at that point, the government is they don't like They don't like how Twitter always comes up negative for a certain group of people. Let's just throw a fine at it that makes it go out of business and the problem is gone. Like that's a situation we very, very much want to prevent. That being said, like giving a company like this a fine, you know, what I want to see is actual change from Facebook.
Yeah,
You know, it's I don't think it's going to happen because I think it's so deeply ingrained in the company's culture that it's irrecoverable.
What if they were forced, in order to do this, that they had to issue a quarterly privacy report, but in order to better allow competition, they had to effectively open up their endpoints so that, you know, if somebody else wanted to, they could make a different interface to Facebook.
I think that is a bad idea.
Okay.
Like that, you know, that is punishing Facebook for their success. That's another thing you need to be really careful for. Like, if a company is successful, sure, they should be scrutinized for that, but they shouldn't be punished for being successful, which is a pattern that we've seen oh so often in the past. You know, the Android fine comes to mind. Like, I won't go into detail on that one, but you know, you need to be careful. Like, Facebook needs to be given the space to be successful and like get what they earn. If they are truly the best social media platform, all the government needs to be involved with is making sure that they don't break any citizens' rights, which I would argue is the case when the privacy concerns start coming in. I mean, personally, I think it is a problem with the culture. It's a problem with the leadership. I would very much have liked something along the lines of there needs to be a reform in top management, because you know what is actually changing in Facebook. Like, they're being scrutinized, but people are still using it, and Mark Zuckerberg is still rolling in the dollars. So, you know, who are you actually hurting? Like, the company's gonna recover from this $5 billion and keep doing what it's gonna do. Like, what would have been better is if there was an agreement to actual structural changes. That's where the government could have made a difference.
Yeah, and you know, that could be in there in terms of this settlement. There's speculation that Facebook may need to document decisions that they make before offering out new products, keep a closer watch on third-party data and apps, and require its top executives, including Mark Zuckerberg, to attest that the company has adequately protected privacy. Though, of course, we don't know any of this because the entire text of the agreement hasn't been released yet. So, and you know, I think that it's of course, the timing is everything on this, right? Prior to this, Facebook announced their Libra cryptocurrency, and you see what this is all building up towards. This is building up towards a public shift in Facebook's marketing that, hey, we're a company focused around the public good. We're offering this currency up. We're going to be getting it into the hands of anyone in the world that wants it. But it does, of course, extend the longevity of Facebook. And, you know, we still don't have questions being answered along the way about how secure and how good their privacy is with this. So lots of questions that are still unanswered over this. And I don't know if this fine does anything for them. And I think that's the conclusion that we just came to.
Yeah.
All right. Also, speaking of fines, the European Commission is going to be investigating Amazon for anti-competitive conduct, in particular that it has both a platform where it sells products and allows people to sell products, but they also sell products of their own as a retailer. And this is largely, of course, based in the European Commission, and we haven't heard any rumblings of this elsewhere in the world. So this is the start of something that's going to be interesting to watch. And I think if you compare these two, Amazon and Facebook, I think the bigger offender is still Facebook.
It probably is, but Amazon is it is a really, really interesting case, and it has been flying under the radar. I think we don't see a lot of it because we don't hear from all the businesses it impacts.
Yeah.
It is like if you sort of start thinking about the model that they actually have. So Amazon sells. Let's start with the fact that Amazon is a platform where you as a business can be a part of. You can offer your products to Amazon. Amazon handles the billing and all the stuff needed, and you just make sure that the project gets shipped and arrives, right? It's a pretty good deal. Like Amazon is such a large platform that if somebody searches for a product like farming tools or something like that, like you as a farming tool maker probably want to show up in that search result.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really sort of, I mean, to be honest, Amazon is such a go-to place if you want to buy anything. I wouldn't call them monopoly, but it's close. Like, realistically, if somebody around in my sort of group of people that I know wants to buy something, it's like, oh, I'll go to Amazon and get it. So, it's a go-to thing where these people have to go to. And, Amazon, being the handler of all these orders, gets all the analytics on this as well. So they can see that your rake, which is a great farming tool, is a super popular product, right? And you're making lots of profit on it. And it's like, okay, let's offer Amazon Basics rake. And that will not show up higher in the search results. And now people are going to get that because Amazon has the skill to sell these things cheaper, to advertise them and put them on the top of the list. And that is where the problem comes in. Amazon can use their position as being a platform to sort of strengthen their own offerings. And the question is whether that's allowed, because you're using your competitors' data to compete them out of the space.
Yeah, but I mean, there are also options as well, so you can filter out that you can have items that are not necessarily fulfilled by Amazon if you wanted to do that.
How many people do that, though?
They don't, and I'm just playing devil's advocate that they can say that, hey, if people want to see that, they can.
It's the same as Android, right? Like Google gets a lot of shit because like, oh, there's the Play Store, and the response is download another app store and you're done with the problem. But people don't do that realistically. Like that's something you have to look at as well. Like what do people actually do? So no, I in the I brought up Google because they actually had like one of the finds was about sort of their store behavior, or like the search and Google shopping behavior was one of them. And you look at that and you look at what Amazon does and you're like, why is the one thing allowed but the other not? So, I'm sort of glad that this comes up, and maybe the European Committee will actually say, it's completely fine. All the behavior you do is within the rules and within the allowances, in which case that's also great because that will make me have a better feeling when I next order on Amazon that they're actually doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I have a hunch they don't, because this is Amazon.
Mm-hmm. You don't get to be the biggest shopping website by, playing honest.
Exactly. And if you hear, like, we just had the Prime Days end yesterday, there was like a big boycott and a big strike of the workers because of the working conditions. Amazon seems to go pretty far in cost cutting. So, it wouldn't surprise me if there's things like that going on. But,
it happens. We
can only wait. And it's good to see that this is like these investigations are not limited to a single company.
Yeah, and they're going to be looking at the agreements between Amazon and marketplace sellers, which of course is what we said, is that if you're looking for that rake, if you is there an Amazon Basics variant, or is there a fair competition between all the different brands that you could search, and also the role of data in the selection of the winners of the buy box and the equipment of Amazon's potential use of complexity-sensitive marketplace seller information. What is a buy box? Is that like...
I have no idea. I'm not that versed in e-commerce.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Is there like a thing where it's like an I'm feeling lucky where you just type in rake and you hit buy and it will send you a rake?
Well, you do have sort of insta buy buttons. It's not I'm feeling lucky, but you do have the option for like things like renewables, like razors for shaving, for example. You probably want to like buy those fairly regularly. So some brands allow you to have like a button that you click one button and the next day you'll have a new set of razors.
Oh, okay, I see.
At home. Not sure if that's called buy box, but that does exist.
All right, fair enough.
But only for selected brands.
That's true. And this will, of course, all be through the Amazon websites in the EU areas? Because I assume there's a different one for each European country.
There's
Amazon
a few.
Dot.
We don't have them in every country, but we have a UK one, there's a France one, there's a German one.
So what
Those
would
are the
you
big
use
ones.
if you were buying something in the Netherlands on Amazon?
The German one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Well, that's going to be a big one, and France is going to be a big one as well, and the UK. So, I mean, that's something we can look at for a couple more months, at least on the UK front. Sorry to bring that up. But anyways, moving on to our last piece of tech news. 50 years ago yesterday, July 16th, the first manned mission to land on the moon blasted off, and I took them a couple days, actually a few days to get to the moon. So this entire time period that we're looking at now, from the 16th to the 20th, I believe, back in 1969 was very groundbreaking, because it was the first time that humans set foot on a different celestial body, the moon. And after the Apollo program shut down, nobody has really gone back to the moon in the sense of landing humans on it. Granted, different probes have landed on it, different countries have landed their probes, but no humans have gone back since. And it's something that still raises questions in space circles. But we need to celebrate this 50 years ago, because this was perhaps one of the biggest triumphs in science and technology that we've ever seen.
I mean, it is amazing what they did with the amount of computing power that you currently find in your microwave. It is like, that's really how it was.
Yeah.
It is. We have more computational power in our pockets every day than what they used to go to the moon and back. Makes you wonder, why is it so hard to go back there? But
yeah, and the reason for that is because the space regime, in particular NASA, over the years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, became very risk averse and wanted to do things without risk, and that, of course, led us to where we are now in low Earth orbit. But the entire Apollo program was groundbreaking in itself, from the runs that didn't even land on the moon, such as Apollo 10, and then all the subsequent Apollo missions following that, Apollo 11 that went to the moon, except Apollo 13, which, number 13 failed. Crew almost died, but they did make it back. And this is just
got some movie routes out of that.
Yeah, they did. They did. And I think at this point in time, we're obviously looking at probably, I think, the private sector who's going to spearhead this going forward, you think?
It is, yes, most likely. Though we are seeing NASA working on a separate progress as well, but they're working on their own booster, the SLS, and it's taking a while to get there. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. And yeah, I just find it so amazing that this was 50 years ago. Like, that's a long time. Like, that's like, it feels much less long ago that they did this. Like, it did, like, 50 years is like half a century. Like, it feels that they should have been less long ago.
Yeah, and you know, in some ways it feels like we should have made more rapid progress since then too. So
yeah,
and you know, you point to technology that was developed for that. I can point towards multiple pieces of technology. Velcro, for example, Velcro fasteners is one. The pen that I use each and every day that we talked about on a pick of the week beforehand, new forms of insulative technology for both spacesuits and space vehicles for radiation. So,
but I mean, yeah, we had a sort of low in how many new technologies were developed, but like, it should not be understated how much progress we've made in the last 5 years or so. Like, 5 years ago, we would have laughed at someone saying, "Oh, we can shoot a rocket in space and land a booster on a drone ship out in the ocean."
Upright.
Like, people would have laughed at that, and now SpaceX does it almost every single time, which is like super impressive. Like, that's the kind of progress we need. This is currently spearheaded by a bunch of billionaires like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and a few others. And, you know, that's sort of the vision that we need. And I think it goes to speak that, you know, this is moving away from governments and into the hands of private people. And I think we've seen that trend in lots of other areas as well. So I'm excited.
Yeah, you know, just to go back to the Apollo program on that, you know, we're almost in the same kind of phase we're in now as they would have been in the mid '60s, developing, you know, new technologies and whatnot that would take us there and eventually to Mars on that front. But the last Apollo launch was Apollo 17 back in 1972, and that was the last crewed moon landing, and it was you know, they wanted to go bigger after that, and they went to the space shuttle program, and that ran
we
until
all know how that went.
Yeah, it had its moments, definitely. It ran till 2011, and since then, you know, it's kind of, the U.S. has kind of been absent in space. So, and this speaks to what we said, is that there's lots of private activity going on. And I don't know, do you think that we'd be better off if it was went private sooner, or if there was still the huge government involvement?
It just seems to me that, like, there's risks about doing this to private companies, but the inertia that governments have is not going to help progress in this area. So, you know, I definitely think that private companies are the way forward here.
Yeah, I know the U.S. administration wants to send U.S. people back to the moon by 2024. So we'll see if that happens. I don't know. You think it will?
Estimates for, like, space stuff always seem to be too optimistic, so no.
Alrighty. Well, nonetheless, we do have a good article linked in the show notes at update.rsbnb.com if you want to read about this monumentous occasion. And 50 years is definitely something. So moving on into our other things, we, of course, do have our Skills of the Month competitions that we have. Parnassus won the Hunter competition with 8.9 million XP gained. Second place was Earth with 147K. Yeah, there really wasn't much interest in Hunter this month with Big Game Hunter, unfortunately. And our agility contest is off to the races, and we don't have any information on that, but we'll be watching that one because, of course, that new agility course out there. So, all right. Let's go over some achievements. I'll grab the first half. You can grab the second half. So starting off on July 15th, we have Zachmaster with 99 Herblore. Nighthog 1 with 99 Prayer on the 15th as well. Juan S with 99 Constitution. Herbla, who is an Iron Man, with 120 Thieving on July 14th. And Popo with 120 Strength on July 13th as well.
Cool. Also the July the 13th, we had Coded Ninja getting 99 fishing. We had Syrian, who is that guy? The name rings a bell. Getting a 120 invention on July 13 as well. Then on July 12, we had Pop O getting 120 hunter. And then finally on July 11, we had Statebird getting 99 dungeoneering. And Seth E. Roth getting 99 firemaking. Well done, everyone.
That was intentional, getting you to read off your own 99, by the way.
Oh, that was
Or
revenge
120.
for my comment at the start of this show.
Wait, what comment was that?
That you should do this show on your own.
Ah, yes. Yes, it was.
Okay.
All right, pick of the week time, and you've been saving this one.
I've been saving this one.
I was a little bit disappointed that you did the fidget cube while I was away.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many picks lined up right now. I think you'll love most of them. So I hope this week's makes up for it. Especially since we're talking about going to the moon. You can actually do it yourself if you want to. Because my pick of the week is a game called Elite Dangerous. It's already a few years old, but it's still actively being updated. They work with a model that you buy the base game, and every year they sort of release a new chapter, which is an expansion. You can keep playing without, like, it's sort of optional, but sort of that's the pattern and get more content.
They call it a living game. Where have we heard that before?
Yeah, I'll get into that in a second.
All right.
But yeah, like in general, so let me explain what the game is. So the game is how do you explain it? It's a science fiction game. So you own a ship, and the game world is an actual real sized Milky Way model. And that might sound crazy, but every single star in the Milky Way is simulated in this game. The distances between planets, all the mechanics, it's all sort of based on our very own Milky Way. You can go to the solar system. There's all the planets that you're used to. There's Pluto. The voyages are somewhere in deep space where they have been going for, well, in this case, a millennia, because it takes place in the 34th century. Basically, humanity has spread sort of throughout the area of the Milky Way they're in. So that's called the bubble, where like there's lots of space stations. If you go really far away, like towards like Sagittarius A, the black hole in the center, for example, you just enter areas where are completely unpopulated, and you can just explore, and sort of, yeah, like lots of people do that. It's super interesting.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm looking at the website and the ship section. It says top speed. Is that in meters per second that it's listed? M/S, is that meters per second, or is that a different measurement? For example, the Cobra Mark III is 400 meters per second, I assume.
Yes, that's meters per second.
That's slow.
Yes, so that's not, of course, not how you travel between planets.
All right. I'll let you continue on. You'll get there eventually.
Yeah, so you can jump between systems, and within systems there's something called supercruise that allows you to travel up to 300 times the speed of light. And then between two stars, you jump. So it's sort of an instant jump as long as you sort of, yeah.
Is there any lore behind that, how it works?
Probably. I'm not familiar with it, but yeah, probably. There's some really cool stuff there.
Okay.
So yeah, how is this a living game? So the game actually sort of takes place in real time. So the game takes place like in the 34th century, but like a day still takes 24 hours, and events are unraveling as they would be that far in the future. Like one day in real life is one day in that sort of universe. This is modeled also in e-games economics. So, it is just economics on a really large scale. You might have a system that has a lot of sort of rich metals, which will have space stations that have a high supply in metal. And a different system might have need for those metals because they're going to a civil war. So they need to build lots of stuff. That sort of dynamicness is continuously going on a Milky Way wide scale. It is incomprehensible how much detail there is. There's millions of factions in this game that each have their own motivations, their own strengths. And everything you do in the game, like transporting goods from one place to another, can impact that. Especially once you go into the later game, and let's say you're in a guild, in a clan, in a group, sort of transporting massive amounts of weapons to a certain faction, that faction will probably win the civil war. And that's sort of how the game is very dynamic.
Interesting. Now, for somebody who would want to get into this, how hard is it to get in, get going, and get versed in what's happening? Is this something you'd want to just stay around the Earth solar system for a bit first? Or?
So you can't start in the Earth solar system because the Earth solar system is controlled by the Empire. And access to the Earth solar system is actually restricted. So you can't... All the ships that are produced have sort of software built in that prevent you to jump to that system.
Oh, okay,
That's
fair enough.
How that works. There's lore behind it. You can go there, but you have to build up reputation with the Empire to actually be granted access to Sol. So that's sort of how that works. But you start out by exploring, maybe doing combat encounters. You can do trading, and so you build up to bigger ships. And you sort of slowly roll into the story. So there's a dynamic story, which is that about a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago, encounters with an alien race started happening, and we don't actually know who they are or what they are.
Oh.
And slowly more things have been unfolded. But the way we find out more about these aliens is actually players going and looking at hints in the universe and sharing that on forums.
Oh, wow.
Okay. We have gotten...
So it's like putting a huge intergalactic puzzle together.
It really is. At some point there was a trailer for a new episode, and it sort of zoomed in on a planet, and it showed
Mm-hmm.
ruins of this alien race. And what people did, they spent weeks triangularizing the star positions in the image and finding planets with that signature to find these ruins. People are really, really invested in this, and it's awesome because some people are taking this super role play super seriously. There was a massive quest to go to the center of the Milky Way and build a space station there. And what the developers did, they put a framework for a space station in there, and they told the players, you get the resources there to build it, and it will exist. And thousands of players filled up their ships with resources and started on a week-long trip to the center of the Milky Way.
I remember you telling me about that one. And how many made it?
And enough people made it, and now there is a permanent human settlement near Sagittarius A. And that's sort of the dynamicness I love about this community. This is what a living game is.
That is a true living game. All right.
It is a true living game. It lives in the hearts of the players. It lives as it is telling a story. I'm not super engaged with the story. I don't have enough time to go invest it. But for me, stepping into that ship and just doing some trading, first of all, it's super zen, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just step in the ship, you fly, you're basically a space trucker, and the game feels so good. It's very responsive. The physics are very good. The sound design is amazing. There's so many lessons for every
and I assume
aspiring game developer.
you got full 3D rain in space.
Yeah, and it's the game is so immersive. Like, all the UI is in your ship, in the 3D space. The game is completely VR ready. Like, the cockpit space is completely 3D. And even if you're not playing with a VR headset, the immersion is there. And whenever I play, I feel like I'm part of this universe and the living story, even though I'm not engaging with it. And it's the game that has achieved that in the best possible way. And it is a game I keep coming back to. It is just that good.
And I think that's why it's pick of the week and why we just spent almost 20 minutes on it.
Wow. Yeah, sorry about that. It's really hard to describe the feeling of this community. And I know I've rambled to Shane about this on many occasions. So I'm hoping I have given some of the context and that you're willing to give it a try. Yeah.
All right, Elite Dangerous. It also looks available on Xbox, so you'd probably want to play it on PC, right? Are all the communities intertwined?
I believe they're all intertwined, yeah. I think you can play online together or in solo play. It's sort of a semi-MMO, I guess. Yeah.
All right.
I think it is a multi-platform.
Sounds good. So what have you been up to on RS this week?
Not much. I've been working on our base camp mostly on Anachronia. Mostly focusing on just getting like the base buildings, like the town hall, the storage house, and the sleeping quarters. Upgraded, and then I'll look at the other ones.
I agree. That's what I'm going for as well.
I just want to have like maximum number of workers so I can sort of speed up the rest.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
But there's some cool bonuses. Like I want the skill cape stand, for example.
Okay, I want the Slayer helmet one more.
Yeah, like there's a bunch of stuff there that I want. Otherwise, I've been doing a whole bunch of mining. I want to make a set of Masterwork armor, basically completely by myself.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it.
It's really frustrating, kind of, because I keep getting geodes and they keep giving me the alloy bars. I'm like, no, make these myself.
But hey, you still got to fold them.
It gives me enriched ones.
It's going to still take time.
I sold them. For some money.
Right.
I want to get them myself. But yeah, I've been working on that. I got most of the high level ores. I'm now basically down to some of the lower ones. We'll see if I keep going with mining these. Like,
yeah,
maybe when I get to like iron and copper and tin, that might be like they're pretty cheap on the GE. But
iron, copper, and tin, I actually bought, and I got my coal from the kingdom. The rest I mined myself.
Yeah, like especially iron, I think you need like 1800 for a set of Masterwork armor, which is pretty painful, but I'll see what I do. But yeah, that's what I've mostly been working on. I got 120 invention, as we discussed, and I'm currently working to 115 dungeoneering, which I'm hoping to get before the double XP weekend, which is looking almost likely.
Alrighty. Well, what can I say about me? I normally don't. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. I was going to look up your XP in Dungeoneering, but apparently there's a company called Sirion LLC in Moore Park, California.
Oh no, you have found out my secret identity.
Anyways, but as for me, I already mentioned I'm working on the agility codexes that I'm gonna probably sell one right after we do the show here. Then I'll get one for myself, and then we'll see if I go to Big Game Hunter or what. But I have also been throwing in a little bit of extra engagement on RS, let's just say. As I mentioned last week, we have a group of people here who did return to the game, notably Earth and Mike, and since then we've actually been doing Dungeoneering, and I'm actually at 103 Dungeoneering now, believe it or not.
Yeah, and you're overtaking me.
I don't like it. I will say that I don't like dungeoneering. I only do it for the social aspect and to help people. So I literally don't care how much XP I get from it. So that's my aspect and take on dungeoneering. But we have also been, and you're gonna find this one really interesting. We have also been bossing to Vindicta.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah. And, I think it's opening up a push into other things as well, so much so that this weekend I'm probably actually going to sit down and go back to Araxor, something I haven't done since it first came out. But, we've had good luck at Vindicta before. The first run, we actually got a Dragon Rider Lance, and following that, it was a bit more interesting because, we did an entire hour worth, because that's how long the instances are. And, I think we can upend your bad luck streak, because in an entire hour, Earth didn't get a single drop.
Oh, man of my heart.
But I came away with around 2.2 mil worth in stuff from just the share. This was a group with 4 people, so this was split 4 ways, and you could imagine if it was only one, how that would have wound up being. But it is relatively profitable on that. It's engaging enough that it's not too easy like God Wars Dungeon 1, but it's not so hard that you'll get your teeth kicked in. I think the next place we're going to go is probably the original next, once we sort out some ranged equipment stuff. But this is how it's happening, my foray into PVM.
You're going to get that Reaper achievement, man.
No. Heavens no. Though, come to think about it, the only hard ones on that list would be Solak and Virago.
You're feeling pretty confident about Yakamaru then.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Right, sorry. I completely forgot about the raids.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
I would love to see you run from Virago. That's.
I don't know how that's going to go, but we'll see. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but let's just not get too far ahead
I can
of
make
ourselves.
fun of that because I have some Virago kills, so
okay.
That's the one I feel confident enough to make fun about.
All right. We've also thought, maybe Rise of the Six, but that one was shot down as well. But this is happening, folks. I don't know where it's going to lead, but it's certainly interesting. Though
Rise of the Six is a good 4-player boss, though.
Yeah, it is. I also wonder. I don't know. I should probably just shut up and not say anything else before I jinx anything on this. So, but in general, that's what's been happening. So, you can say that your favorite podcast co-host has started to venture into the areas of PVM. But something funny did happen. They said, can we go do Elite Dungeon 1 on not story mode? And I said, I can't carry you guys through that.
Really, Shane? You can't carry people to the best boss of the game? Serious?
No, I can't. I can't do that.
Wow, I'm disappointed. You better start practicing.
I know I better, because one day we're going to get down to a group of 3, and we're going to need to go do that because they want to do the Curse of the Blackstone quest.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's Don't get me started on that. Yeah, that's like the borderline PTSD.
All right. Well, in that case, then let's wrap up the show. We'll of course be back next weekend for all of that fun double XP weekend goodness, and we'll probably try and get the show done a bit early so you guys have it to listen to for double XP weekend. And this week's is also early because I'm taking a bit of a weekend trip, so we're recording early on this, so expect to see this earlier this week. So hopefully you guys enjoy that, everybody. And with that being said, we'll be back next weekend for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Take care, everyone, and have a good week.
Bye-bye.